Hello and welcome to episode 60 of the Crash and Ride podcast. I'm Patrick Ferguson. I'm your host. Today's guest is Spencer Thomas. Spencer is a multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter based out of Jackson, Mississippi, but only for like 3 more weeks, and that's when he moves to Athens, Georgia. We're going to be stoked to have him as part of our community. We had a really great conversation. If this is your first episode of Crash and Ride is a long-form interview podcast where I talk to musicians about anxiety, depression, and addiction. The idea behind the podcast is that if we could have open and honest conversations about our sadness, we could start to see some of ourselves and others and start to get better. I know a lot of us are really struggling right now here in the middle of this COVID-19 crisis. I hope that one day in the future we can listen back to this episode and think, man, that was a grim time. I'm so glad that's over. People I know who make a living playing music are just hanging by a thread right now. We're probably 2 weeks away from the end of the pandemic unemployment assistance that is keeping a lot of us afloat. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope the best for you. I hope that we all get through this without losing our livelihood and without losing our homes and without having to sell all our gear. It's tough right now. You know, early in this crisis, here in Athens, Georgia, there's a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to mental health for musicians called Nucci Space. They had a musicians relief fund. The last I heard, that fund was not exhausted. If you're like me and you're kind of doing okay, between the money I get for the podcast and the advertising I get from the podcast and the Patreon page, I've got enough money to throw a little bit of cash on that pile in the musicians relief fund. I'm going to reach out to Nucci Space probably on Monday. As I'm recording this, it's Friday, and find out if that thing is still going. If you're a musician and you're in a bind and you're worried about making rent or you're worried about having enough to eat, reach out to Nucci Space if you're in the Athens, Georgia area and see if they can't help you out. You can find Nucci Space on the web at nuci.org. A couple of listeners have reached out since that last episode I posted. You know, before that, there was a long break because I fell into a pretty deep funk about this whole COVID-19 thing. It was great to hear from you guys. Feel free to reach out to the show. If you have questions, comments, affirmations, declinations, criticisms, crashandride@protonmail.com is my email address. Nobody reads that email but me, and it's encrypted, and it's secure, and so your privacy will be protected. I'd love to hear from you. crashandride@protonmail.com. All right, I got a couple of quick announcements. Crash and Ride is brought to you in part by Greer Amplification. Greer Amps builds the best boutique effects pedals available. If you're looking for an overdrive, boost, fuzz, compressor, or tremolo that is rugged, road-tested, and at home on stage, in the studio, or in your living room, Greer has the pedal for you. Nick and his staff strive to build the best products around with the best tone you've ever heard. They believe in their products, and they stand behind them too, backing each one up with a lifetime warranty to the original owner. Each Greer Amps product is hand-built in Athens, Georgia, USA. Go to www.greeramps.com or visit your favorite music retailer today. Crash and Ride is also brought to you in part by Jittery Joe's, a local coffee roaster based here in Athens, Georgia. They have a special espresso blend named after the podcast. It's called Crash and Ride. You know, they just changed the formulation of the espresso just a little bit because, you know, coffee's changed from season to season. My friend Steven, who does the blends and the sort of flavor profiling for Jittery Joe's, brought me 5 pounds of the new Crash and Ride so I could try it out. Man, it got better. I already loved the Crash and Ride espresso, but the new stuff is unbelievable. Normally, I would say go to the website, crashandridepodcast.com, find the store link, and you can get espresso from me there. But right now, my friend Seth Hendershot, who owns Hendershot's Coffee here in Athens, you know, he had to lay off all of his staff. They're trying to figure out a way to keep the doors open, and they're doing mail order on the 2 special blends that Hendershots has, the 78 RPM and 33 RPM blends, and they're also selling Crash and Ride Espresso. Go to hendershotsathens.com and order your coffee from him for now. That's HenderShots Athens.com, and find the store link there and get some espresso from him, and try his blends too. They're really delicious. All right, Spencer Thomas. I first saw him on a sort of Songwriters in the Round show at the Flicker Bar here in Athens, Georgia, with Justin Peter Kinkle-Schuster and our local hero, Jay Gonzalez, and they were just doing a Songwriters in the Round thing. If you've never seen that, what happens is you get 3 really brilliant songwriters, and everybody plays a song or 2, and then the next guy, and then they just rotate. And Spencer's songs really stayed with me. I was struck by the lyricism and just the strong presence of craft in his work and the images that he created in his songs. Well, you'll see. You should listen to the record. Again, it's called Hangin' Tough by Spencer Thomas. It's on Spotify. It's on iTunes. I really like it. A note about the interview. You know, I called him on the phone, and we had the most laid-back, easygoing conversation. It's definitely, it's basically two Southern guys essentially sitting on a porch catching up. So if you're from some other part of the country where people talk fast and think fast and everything happens really fast, this may not be the interview for you, because it happened at its own pace. It was really comfortable, and it just felt like a little bit of sunshine in my life, and I'm really glad we got to do it. I had the microphones on, and we got sidetracked talking about raccoons in my garden, which was the big heartbreak. My whole corn crop got wiped out by raccoons. I just left that in because it's exactly where the conversation started. I really, really enjoyed talking to Spencer. I can't wait till he's my neighbor. And I think you'll enjoy having him here in Athens if you're an Athenian. And if you're not, I would recommend checking him out when he comes around when this whole COVID-19 thing is over. Well, let's just jump into our interview with Spencer Thomas. Week or so angry about the raccoons destroying my corn crop, and I posted up on a ladder for a couple nights, took a couple shots at them, but my corn crop is a complete loss this year. So now I'm protecting my watermelons from them. My next move, I think, is to trap some, and there's not really anybody I know of that I'm mad at enough to release in their yard, but well, man, I dug deep on your record since the last time we talked.
Oh, great!
And am super stoked that you're going to be an Athenian soon.
Man, I am super stoked too. Even with the circumstances at hand, I still am excited to be there.
Tell me
about that. There's always been something about it.
What are the circumstances?
Well, with, I guess I mean with the COVID-19 circumstances.
Yeah.
The big circumstance, really.
We're all living in right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
when is your move?
August the 5th. Right around the corner.
And you've lived in Jackson. You were born in Madison, right?
Yeah. Well, but born in Jackson, we moved out to Madison when I was young.
Yeah.
And, lived here until I graduated high school and went to Delta State in Cleveland, Mississippi, in the Mississippi Delta. And jumped around and kind of pursued a music degree for a while. And then decided to drop out of college to be on the road with a rock and roll band for a while. And kept up with that for, 5 or 6 years. And
that band was Young Valley, right?
Young Valley, yes, sir.
You played drums for them.
Yep. Played drums and co-wrote a lot of songs with Zach Lovett, who was lead songwriter and frontman of the band. I sang a couple as well, and we played up until about August of last year, and I bowed out to continue my own personal pursuits and just kind of, have the freedoms of being able to move around unattached,
Yeah.
So no bad blood. Everything's cool.
Yeah. If you bowed out in August, I saw you play in December on that tour you did with Justin Peter Kinkle-Schuster. I think was it December?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was when I dug down into the record, I immediately was like, oh, I remember every one of these songs. Like they all made an impact.
Oh, man, I appreciate that, Patrick.
Well, I just remember listening to the lyrics of Traveling Angel, which I think is the third track on Hangin' Tough, and thinking, I love this girl. The main character of the song, of course, is a traveling singer-songwriter. You paint such a vivid picture of her in the lyrics that I remember sitting in the dark at the Flickr bar thinking, I love this girl. She,
Right.
You know, like, is it based on a real person?
I would say a conglomeration of people, you know. It kind of is, I guess I just maybe think about, I thought about a handful of singer-songwriter women that, you know, that I listen to and gravitate towards, and just kind of, you know, just put a spin on it. Had a just combined a picture of them in my mind. I've had friends of mine who are singer-songwriters who, you know, like, they'll come up and be like, "That's about me, isn't it?"
What do you say when that happens?
I say, maybe part of it.
Yeah. I want to talk about the album for a minute before we dive into the sort of cumulative experiences that led up to it. But Hangin' Tough was recorded in February of 2018 at Dialback Sound, which is in Water Valley, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. That's the studio owned in part by Matt Patton, bass player from the Drive-By Truckers. And the record sounds incredible. And I was looking through the pictures on their website last night, and I just want to share this. And parenthetically, there's a Paul Mellon piano in that studio. There's a picture of the Paul Mellon branding from the soundboard of that piano. Is that the piano that's on your record?
Yes.
So the reason I have an interest in that is because recently, since this COVID crisis started, I had to help empty out a house. Someone was leaving a house, and there was this baby grand Paul Mellon piano on a second floor landing in a stairway, and they had not found anybody to take that piano. And so I had to break that piano down into dumpster-sized chunks. It was like 115-year-old piano. And I saved that sound on the big harp that holds all the strings of the piano, held in by enormous solid brass screws. There was this plate that had that branding on it. I have it in my room, and when I saw that, I was like, wow. I mean, it was one of the saddest things I've ever had to do to like actually take a sawzall to a 100-year-old piano. It was really... It was tough, man. But like, I was calling people the minute I like clapped eyes on this piano. I was calling everybody I knew who fixed pianos, and they were like, you know, they had like 3 questions. Is it a Steinway? It is not a Steinway. Is it already on a pallet? Can I just come get it? No, it's not on a pallet. Is it in playable condition? It's not in playable condition. And everybody, all the like piano repair guys I knew and people who fix instruments were like, yeah, I don't know, man. There's really nothing I can do with that. And certainly not going to drive all the way to Columbus, Georgia and pick it up. And so the owner of the piano, who'd had it in his family, you know, for 3 generations, was like, I guess we're just going to put it in that dumpster. It was rough, man. Felt like I was killing somebody.
That breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, or, you know, it's like, I don't know, it's like seeing a beautiful painting and like taking a knife to it. Because, I mean, you know, it's like, even though it's an instrument that people create art on, it is a piece of art in itself. And so having to just take it down piece by piece and put a saw to it, I mean.
Like saying 15-year-old piano is handmade is kind of an understatement. Like every piano was handmade 115 years ago, you know. It's just absolutely beautiful instrument.
Yeah.
I still have a bunch of the ivory from the keys. I took a razor and was able to lift a bunch of the ivory keys, the caps off the keys. And I have the lid, the like I thought that it was solid mahogany, but then I took it to my luthier buddy, and he was like, "Nah, that's mahogany veneer over maple." And I had hoped to maybe make a guitar out of it. He's like, "This, no one's ever made a decent sounding maple guitar." So I'm probably gonna use the ivory in some kind of project. I might use them as inlays on a fingerboard at some point, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with that big lid. It's just out in my garage, but anyway, that's enough of a digression about the traumatic experience of breaking down a piano. I wanted to ask you about the drums on the song State and Downing, because they are really kind of almost ethereal. Like, I've never heard a drum track like that on a record, and I've played on and listened to literally thousands of records, and the drums on that song just stopped me in my tracks. Like, what was the... So tell me about who was the rhythm section on that and what the thought was behind that sort of atmospheric drum track.
Well, that was a combination of things. We didn't want it has a folk, like an upbeat folk groove, but we didn't want to we feel like we were going to ruin it if we just threw like a straight train beat down. Ethan Frink he played drums on there, and Bronson too, who's co-owner of Dialback, engineer at Dialback. Ethan got the basic, the basic rhythmic structure with one of those the broomstick like brushes. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
I don't know what they're called. Yeah. And so we use that for the snare, and you hear that shaker sound, but it's so exact. And the reason for it is because I've tried to explain this to dozens of people, but I don't know what it's called. It's the scrapey instrument in a lot of Latin American music.
Guiro. It's the
guiro.
Guiro. Well, it's Guiro. But
Guiro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are really cool.
So, yeah, they are. So instead of taking the accompanying wooden stick that usually goes with the guiro, we used that brush on top of it.
Oh, that's a really cool.
And so we had, and we were like, whoa, interesting. I want to give proper credit to whoever came up with that idea, but I don't really, I don't know. I think it was, sometimes you just go with it. And then we used this big bass drum and a big plushy mallet to just accent. And we were just like, how do we create a cinematic effect around the song? And speaking of State and Downing, another DBT shout out to Jay Gonzalez, who laid down some beautiful mellotron parts over that track as well.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
So the show that I saw, for people who don't live in Athens or weren't around for this show, the show was packed, and it was a really great show. But Spencer and Justin Peter Kinkle-Schuster and Jay Gonzalez did a sort of Songwriters in the Round show at the Flicker Bar, and it was really remarkable. So for those of you who don't know, aren't steeped in the Athens lore, Jay is, of course, the keyboard player for the Drive-By Truckers, and just an extraordinary talent. And interestingly, Drive-By Truckers, have a pretty strong Southern rock, Americana thing, but Jay is almost like a Burt Bacharach songwriter.
Yeah.
Just turns into these...
it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely polished pop gems of just pure craftsmanship that are really remarkable.
Yeah.
Your influences kind of break out of the sort of standard, like, big five Americana, like, When I was listening to Company Man, I thought this song, it feels like if Bruce Springsteen and Jackson Browne like co-wrote "I Fought the Law," like it would be Company Man.
Oh my God, I'm so glad that you said that, because I've been telling people this whole time with this record, I was like, I want it to be like if Tom Petty and Bruce Springsteen and Jackson Browne like cross-germinated a illegitimate child. I don't really know. It was like somewhere in there. And some songs lean one way or the other. And I'm so glad that you said that.
Well, I feel like I was listening to the record and I was thinking, why does Jackson Browne have as strong a singer-songwriter following? Because I remember watching the Eagles documentary, and like they were complaining about how hard Jackson Browne worked because he was in an apartment below one of the Eagles, and like I think it was the song "Running on Empty." Whoever was telling the story was recalling how many times they heard Jackson Browne polish that riff to the point where it was, and so. You know, I think maybe the ubiquity of Jackson Browne for Gen X listeners, like we heard "Running on Empty" and another half dozen of his songs on the radio to the point where it was a little exhausting. And he's not someone I see referenced as an influence as often. But I gotta say, looking back on it, that was a hard-working, talented singer-songwriter who I don't think really kind of gets his just. Respects from a lot of modern writers.
A lot of people have no idea that he was the one that had "Take It Easy," and Glenn Frey helped with the second verse. I mean, you know, it was originally, it was his original brainchild, and Glenn Frey helped him finish it. But you know. Among those things, like one of my favorite songs of Jackson Browne is "Fountain of Sorrow." And because it's just, he paints such a wonderful picture. The piano part is just magical. I mean, and you can hear by how specific everything is, how hard he worked. You know, when it's just you have to make sure that everything is clicking just right. Like, if you're going to play a song and entertain people, all the nuances are important. And Jackson Browne always had that ready to go.
You know, I think maybe it's time for a critical reappraisal of his work. And I'll start with, you know, the second that we're done here today, I'm going to put on Fountain of Sorrow and have a listen. Because I think that this Hangin' Tough has kind of led me back to that. Like, you know, I think I might have missed something here. I want to talk a little bit about the song "Lift Me Up" because, you know, it's down in the running order of the record, but I think the chorus. I sent the lyrics from the chorus to a friend last night in the text. I don't know why I'm this way. I don't know what brings me down. I got nothing to say. I don't want no one around. If you don't mind the trouble too much, when I fall, will you lift me up? I sent that in a text to a buddy last night saying, this is a lot of words for a tattoo, but it's going to look pretty good right down the middle of my chest, I think.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, thank you. I would be honored. I would maybe second guess putting it right down the middle of your chest, but, you know, but if that's what you decide to do with my lyrics, I will be honored either way.
My body, my choice, Spencer. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, your body, your choice. Exactly. Well, yeah, I appreciate that very much. I also loved that it was later in the record, but that one is my favorite song. That, you know, it's always kind of a tie between that and Dark Tonight. If somebody handed me a guitar or sat me down at a piano and they were just like, play me a song you wrote, you know, I'd probably reach for one of those first.
Yeah, you know, it just occurred to me, I finished all of these interviews with 10 questions, and we'll get to that, in a little while, but that would be a really interesting question to ask a singer-songwriter. Like if somebody pointed a gun at you and said, play the best song you ever wrote, what would it be?
Yeah. That is an interesting question. Yeah. Are you asking me now, or are you just saying that?
Well, I might ask you in about 30 minutes. But yeah, okay. Would it be Lift Me Up? You think?
Oh, well, as far as the content of the words, Lift Me Up, it just, it's a short, I don't think anybody is a stranger to that feeling.
Yeah.
So as far as like universally understood, yeah. But I think as far as like structurally, like what songwriters look for in a song, I think Dark Tonight is the best one. Yeah. Because it's got a chorus that I feel like you are going to remember and repeat it in your head after you hear it. Everything hits quick. Everything is distinctive. The bridge provides a good movement. I don't know. I just am really proud of how that song rounded out. So structurally, that one is my favorite.
Yeah. So this record, it's remarkable in that it's got a bunch of really great moments on it, of not just the sort of singer-songwriter craft moments, but also just really uniquely perfect human moments. But normally a guy who wrote a record like this would be thinking about moving to Nashville, but you're moving to Athens, Georgia. What made you choose Athens over Nashville?
Gut feeling. I have never really been a huge fan. Granted, like I know I have a lot of great friends in Nashville. I know a lot of people who move up there and have this incredible success, but I just, for the sake of my sanity, I just kind of wanted to go off the beaten path. Especially with a world that there's so much that happens remotely, I don't want to just move to Nashville with, an acoustic guitar in my hand and be one of the starry-eyed kids hopping off the train, being like, wow, Nashville, somebody hear my songs. I don't know. Maybe that's not the way that it really is, but I do better in smaller areas. I really do. I enjoy smaller towns better. I like parking spaces and cheaper rent and not having to wait in line forever at a coffee shop. I just,
mm-hmm.
and I understand that this is not a hate on Nashville. Truly, it is blossomed into a wonderful place where artists have developed themselves. It's either not for me or it's not for me yet.
Yeah.
So
we used to play Nashville all the time in the 90s. The band that I've done the most work in is a power pop band called 5/8, and we would play Exit In and the Cannery and the occasional house party in Nashville. And at the time, it felt like the music industry was a thing that was happening way over there, like Garth Brooks and Travis Tritt and all these millionaires. And then the sort of original music, not big Nashville sound, was a thing that was maybe 0.02% of what mattered in Nashville. And
mm-hmm.
now, of course, this enormous Americana scene has sprung up there. But I have stayed in Athens myself because there was a moment where I was like, man, Nashville seems like it's really popping. A guy who plays drums could get some work there. But now when I go up there, like I joke about, your iced coffee is going to cost $7, and your Lyft driver was here before you even dialed your phone, because everyone is like hustling there because there's just like so few scraps left on the table by the time you get there, you know?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I mean, again, for my Nashville friends who listen to this, if they do, this is not a hate. This is really a personal preference. But let me turn my attention away from Nashville and explain the reason for picking Athens specifically. When I was playing in Young Valley, and the first time we rolled into Athens, we played at the Rooftop, Georgia Theater. And, you know, it was like we could have been the band that was selling out the inside that night. And I feel like we would not have been treated any differently. I mean, everyone was so helpful and kind and ready to lift up gear and ask anything that we needed. You know, they directed us to our own green room, and I was like, this is incredible. And so shout out to Georgia Theater for showing me like the true Athens hospitality. And it was like every time I came back and expected to see maybe like a different side of Athens, I didn't see it. It just grew with that level of hospitality. And you know, everybody who plays music there is very approachable and very welcoming. And all the people that I talked to, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to move here, they were like, hell yeah. What do you need? You need a place to live. You need a place to work. Just an endless list. I already have a community, and I'm not even there.
Yeah.
And that's the amazing part about it.
Athens is a working musician town, and some of those musicians are working at coffee shops and working at the Grit, and some of them are working as sound engineers at the Georgia Theater Rooftop or inside or whatever. But you can't, as my grandma used to say, you can't swing a dead cat and not hit a great musician in Athens. And you would think that would create an atmosphere of hyper competitiveness, and everyone, like, you know, that great Abraham Lincoln quote, two crows on the same ear of corn are seldom friends for long. But my experience is that Athens is still a great place to move to be a musician, especially one as gifted as you are, of course. But I mean, I still think it's the place to be. There's still 3 or 4 bus tours that leave out of here, and innumerable van tours that are based, bands are based out of Athens. So I'm still a big fan.
Yeah, I am too. It just, I don't know. Once I leave the clutches of Atlanta and the hills start rolling a little more, and there are more trees, and then you land yourself in town, and then you come over, whatever road that is that I'm used to driving into, where you kind of roll over a hill, and then you see the downtown, and Athens as a town has done such a great job preserving these old buildings and keeping like the dignity and the heart of the city with its architecture. And so like rolling over and just like seeing it, like, yeah, this is the kind of town that I can be comfortable in and I can work in. And I know that, I could have 8 drummers that I could call that are all friends of mine, as opposed to 50 drummers that I could call who are just looking to, who may all be friends of mine, but who are really trying to jump on gigs, like in reference to Nashville.
Yeah, I was reading an interview with you about Hangin' Tough, and
yeah,
you mentioned that a friend described it as a record about depression, and I don't disagree with that assessment, but I'm sort of curious, like, what was your experience with depression like? Was it something that started in childhood, or did it happen in adolescence? Or like, tell me a little bit about that story.
Well, I definitely had experienced it as when I was young. You know, I'm now a very lanky, skinny little dude, but when I was a young kid, when I was in middle school, I was overweight, and I played a lot of video games. You know, I had some friends, but I didn't really know quite how to fit in, and I would say that I would say that's probably the first real time I think I experienced depression without knowing what it was. I wasn't in good health, first of all, which has a lot to do with it. I also didn't have much of a direction. I had no goals or hobbies I just really just sat around and played video games with a few friends on the street. And, sat on a beanbag chair and I would get lost in games because it gave me just a place to go at the end of the day to escape from the life that I wasn't really very happy with. I think my first instrument was in the 6th grade when I played the tuba. And
what made you pick tuba?
Oh, I don't know. I just joined the band. I joined the school band, and it was like between trombone or tuba, and I was like, tuba sounds cool. I don't know. I was in the 5th grade,
right?
But I had a knack for it. I was able to understand the notes, and it was the first time I picked up an instrument ever.
Yeah.
And
do you still play low brass?
No. I'll tell you, I played the tuba all the way through college, all the way till I was 22. So I'm talking 10 years. And I really, honestly, I got pretty damn good at it. But it was for scholarship at that point. And,
sure.
By the time I left school, I was over it. I mean, first of all, those things are not cheap to purchase.
No.
So
even like a fiberglass sousaphone, like a marching tuba, for those of you who haven't spent any time around band nerds, those things are, a used one is $1,000.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm not worried about an investment into a tuba at this point in my life, but I was thankful for the experience.
I will say this. I saw a funk band in Raleigh, North Carolina 3 or 4 years ago, and I wish I could call the name right now, but I can't. But they had a tuba player and a bass player who were like weaving these like incredible like low melody hooks in and out of each other, and I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And I'm a big second line fan too. Like, the whole New Orleans thing needs low brass because you can't really walk through the streets with an upright bass or an electric bass. But I
know. Oh, that's true. And I think it's amazing. Just like learning from school, it's like hearing how tuba players on the streets of New Orleans, how they bend and twist their notes it's like going from classical to blues guitar playing. Like, that's quite an adjustment. And so it's the same perceiving that. I'm like, wow, they do all sorts of stuff I'm not really even aware of.
So I'm sort of curious, as someone who came out of that world where you're reading bass clef and doing a ton of sight reading, because that's just part of the life of a collegiate musician. Do you still chart things using standard notation as a musician now, or do you just kind of keep it all in your head, or just write chords down as like a letter notation, or how do you have you carried any of those skills forward into your sort of present day craft?
I do not carry any written notation. No. Once my ear got really good, I let go of all that. And I can just get a recording and be able to find it. don't read any piano music or any of that. Sometimes I wish I did, but I don't think it would provide me a whole lot of use if I can listen to a song and kind of and pick it up. I would say when I was in college, I was at one point in college, just, trying to grab all the scholarship money and musical experience that I could, squeeze it out. I was in the choir, the smaller chamber choir. I was in a private voice lesson studio where I had to give my own solo performances. I was in the wind ensemble, playing the tuba. I was in the jazz band, playing bass. And I think even at some points I was also doing marching band stuff. So I ran myself ragged. Another depressing time was being in college and an anxious time. But what I learned from that experience was how to pushing yourself to rehearse and to practice. And, there's a reason that these instructors would push these young, promising kids to go upstairs and book themselves a time in the practice room, to go upstairs and get in there for an hour every day, if you can do it, which I wane from this, but I really try to do what I can to stick with that. Just give yourself an hour of this time, if you're writing, if you're just practicing, give yourself some time to make sure that you're still working on the thing. And I think what I took from that experience was rehearsal.
I grew up in a place probably not completely unlike Jackson, in South Central Georgia. And it's interesting, as you were describing the kid you were, I was thinking, oh man, that was kind of me too. But, someone who grows up to write a song like State and Downing or Lift Me Up, it's going to be maybe a little more sensitive than a place like Jackson or Madison, which is, of course, part of the greater Jackson area, or a kid in Columbus, Georgia, isn't really going to have the skill set that is sort of prized above all else in that environment. Like when I was growing up in Columbus, Georgia, all the kids around me were tough and played contact sports and really into hunting, and man, I felt like the biggest outcast. And that was when I got sort of my first experiences with feeling kind of alienated from my peers, and certainly feeling kind of an unresolvable sadness. And so when you were talking about the kid that you were growing up, I thought, oh man, I definitely identify with that.
Yeah. I think music was a way for all the misfits to come together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm grateful in a lot of ways that I didn't find it until the point that I did. But I also I wish I was singing and playing piano and all of that stuff at a very young age, because I feel like I would have spent more time with that. I don't know about you, but it was while I did play in the band, I didn't ever think music, Spencer, you could do this. It wasn't until about 8th grade I befriended a guy named Alex, and Alex and I we'd ride the bus together. We listened to music together. He was a walk and a fence jump away from me. We were close neighborhood buddies, and he had a drum set, and he showed me a couple of things about it. And as we started playing music together and just making these bullshit songs and recording them. And, you know, he'd like send them to his sister, his older sister, and be like, look, we did this, and Spencer made up the drum part. And I was like, yeah, I did that. And I think it was like, as I got better in music, I was like, oh, you can spend a lot more time shaping this and doing something that is fun and enjoyable to you, that for the same amount of time you play video games and probably get pretty good.
Yeah.
And so from there it was like drums, picked up acoustic guitar. I got a cheap keyboard and started banging on that. You know, it's just like, once you find it, it was the missing piece all your life.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had the same experience.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And there was a peer group of kids that I connected with at my school and kind of in my town who were all sort of bound together by this, number one, being different, but number two, at the time, you know, that was the kind of nascent hardcore scene in America, and we were bonding over Black Flag and 7 Seconds and Minor Threat and all these bands. And the thing that I could bring to the table was I had managed to raise enough money to buy a drum set, cutting grass and opening oysters. I would open oysters for $40 a bushel, which looking back now is really not enough money to charge to stab yourself repeatedly with a cold knife. But but yeah, that's what I brought to the table was drums. I wasn't really thinking of myself as a musician. I was thinking of myself as a punk rocker, and and there was a difference there. Like I was a soldier in my mind. Like I was doing a thing that was truly like a community thing and somewhat transgressive in this deep South of the '80s. You know.
Yeah. It was like, I think we so badly wanted, especially like in our early teens, we just wanted identity more than anything.
Yeah. Do you remember the first record that you like heard and went, oh, this is me. I get this.
Well, as a very young kid, I have very specific memories, listening to Full Moon Fever, Tom Petty's record.
Yeah.
You know, it was like Free Fallin' was my sister's song and Won't Back Down was my song. You know, I mean, of course there were, I think the first 2 tracks on the record even. Yeah, I remember having really specific memories and really just, you know, finding it impossible, like, not to attach yourself to the songs of Tom Petty.
Yeah.
When I really started playing music and, like, playing drums and stuff, like, I remember I was on a big Chili Peppers trip for a while.
Yeah. It was unavoidable.
You know, I mean, I was just, like,
they were so
like
omnipresent.
I was a drummer, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's like I was a drummer and I never associated, I mean, like Patrick, I didn't sing a song in front of people until my freshman year of college. That was the first time I sang a song in front of people ever. I mean, it was, you know, so like that, a lot of, I would say, you know, songwriting and singing, like a lot of that stuff really came in as I was 18 years old. So like the past 10 years, it was just really then it was more like, I didn't really think about songs and words, and, you know, I didn't think much about the structure. I learned to play like little guitar parts of songs, and tell you what though, I do remember really gravitating towards the Killers.
Oh yeah,
I love Brandon Flowers' voice.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had an excellent way about them with, you know, like it was absolutely pop, but it was not it was not a tasteless pop by any means.
Yeah.
It was very inviting and friendly, and and I mean, like, and with his voice and some of their songwriting stuff and some of the attitude in it, I mean, you could bend it to relate a little bit to like Bruce Springsteen or something of that nature. And I remember really attaching to Sam's Town by them.
Uh-huh.
And I remember when I first really wanted to sing, I wanted to sound like him. Because I just thought he had this powerful and soulful voice. So I guess that was one.
Yeah. So you described your experience at Delta State. You were, like a lot of working class kids in college, just like chasing every single scholarship dollar you could, and you were doing 8 million things. Show choir, quartet, marching band, and but you didn't finish school. You dropped out to play with Young Valley. Was that like a burnout moment, or just a moment where you thought, all right, this is actually what I want to do?
Yeah. So it was, I thought I had a point to myself. My last semester was pretty depressing. And I was burnt out. I hated music. I mean, I was a voice major, and while I'm so thankful for the experience, and I really learned how to sing. Like I got training to learn how to sing, and so it kind of made up for all that time that I didn't sing when I was younger.
How many hours a day would you estimate when you were at Delta State? How many hours a day did you sing?
Oh, I mean, multiple. I mean, I wouldn't say anything like 6 or 8, but I would say sometimes 3 to 4 hours a day, depending on the day.
I mean, when you think about the level of physical commitment you have to give to singing in that environment, like that must have been absolutely exhausting.
Oh yeah, and because I didn't grow up all my life singing it, I felt like I was always trying to catch up. And so like looking back, I wish I had the mental fortitude that I have now as a 28-year-old man. Like going back into it. Like if I were able to do that and able to take in all that knowledge, but really it was just, I just had so much anxiety, and if anybody who's dealt with it, it's like, we know anxiety and depression are brothers. They interact with each other, and
sure.
And so I think, so it's like you feel this extreme, like, I would think a lot about, I would feel these pressures that were only perceived in my own mind, of like what professors expected of me and all of this, and running around and doing all these rehearsals, and like trying to maintain a standard for myself. And it would be extremes, it's like you'd work your ass off, and then you'd want to go smoke the fattest bowl you possibly can to and like eat a painkiller and fry your brain, and it was, or drink a lot of whiskey, and you were just eating shit food in college. It was like this extreme of like hardcore, like study, practice. And then by the time you did get a break, you just wanted to numb yourself.
Yeah. You said a couple of times, because I didn't grow up singing, or because I started music late, like you used phrases like that a couple of times. And it sounds to me like those are artifacts of a strong imposter syndrome thing that might have been happening in college too.
Yeah. That's a good point. imposter syndrome still comes back to greet me to this day. But yeah, that is an excellent point. And I think I dealt a lot with that. So
yeah, the worst part about imposter syndrome to me is that feeling of anxiety at its worst for me. I've been out on tour with artists who I idolized when I was younger, you know, and just constantly thinking, I don't belong here, and they're going to figure it out any minute, and it actually affects my performance sometimes, you know.
Yeah. It's almost like you start to dig the hole.
Oh yeah.
You know, like once you stick the shovel in the ground, yeah, you might as well go ahead and dig 6 feet deep for you to just go lay in, you know, because you're about to bury yourself with all of these pressures that you've created. Yeah, I agree with that, and so it becomes this just. You know, you're just unable, you just feel consistently unable to measure up. And I mean, and I still, to this day, you know, I feel that when I don't feel like I've written anything as good as you know, as songs that I feel are feathers in my cap. You know, the ones that I consider, staples of what I think is unique to me. When I feel like I haven't been able to find that place again, you know, I'm like, yeah, who are you? Are you a songwriter? You know, it's like you went off and did this and went to become your own songwriter. Ooh, look at you. You know, I mean, it's just, and you're like, where did this come from? Who is this guy talking shit about me in my own mind?
But I think that specter, that fear of that sense of like, I don't deserve this, is part of what drove Jackson Browne to work so hard as a writer. And I think that it's part of what drives your work ethic, is the sense of like, well, I wasn't born to do this, but I'm going to fucking earn it.
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely it. Because I mean, you know, people will say you have such a gift, you have such a talent. I mean, and I'm not saying like that's what they all say to me, but I'm saying that generally, if you do have a knack for music, people say that. And when you think that you're gifted and talented, sometimes you don't think that you have to work, but it is work.
Yeah.
It is work. That's the only way to get better, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the 10,000 hours, right, for mastery.
Yeah. The Malcolm Gladwell thing.
Yeah, you got to put in your work.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I write songs to throw away. I write songs that I don't care to send to anybody, just to keep the craft moving, just to keep it going. Because the more I'm able to just roll through songs like that, when I really get the good idea, I'm able to welcome it and I'm prepared for it. But I mean, I think just like anything, you have to, they're not all going to be gems.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
My friend Jeff in college, he was one of my closest friends. He would, you know, he would make jokes. He was always a very funny guy, but you know, whenever he made a joke that didn't land, he would just be like, "They can't all be gems, Spencer," you know. and so I think about that. I'm like, yeah, that's the same with songs too. They can't all be gems.
Yeah, it's true.
If you know, just chase the ridiculous idea, and if it doesn't go anywhere, only you have to hear it.
Hey, Crash and Ride would like to let you know about a new industry-wide initiative focused on mental health called Backline. Backline is a hub for artists, industry professionals, and their families to quickly and easily access mental health and wellness resources. Backline has partnered with leading support organizations and care providers to streamline access to services specifically geared towards the music industry. Go to www.backline.care to get the support that you need to thrive both on and off the road. The way that Backline works is you contact them via their website or their 800 number, and they will connect you with a caseworker. That caseworker will be familiar with resources in your area to get you the mental health care that you need. If you need to talk to a therapist, they can put you in touch with a therapist. If you need to talk to a psychiatrist and be evaluated for meds, they have a list of psychiatrists. They have resources for inpatient therapy. They can put you in touch with sober companions. If you need someone to travel with you while you're on the road and help you stay out of trouble, Backline is a really end-to-end comprehensive solution for people who are struggling in the music industry. Now, a little closer to home, if you're in the Athens, Georgia area and you're a musician struggling with anxiety and depression, you can contact Nucci Space at 706-227-1515 or go to nuci.org. That's nucci.org. Nucci Space is a nonprofit musicians resource focused on suicide prevention. Here's how Nucci's works. If you contact them and you say, hey, look, I'm in crisis, whether you're a musician or not, they'll connect you with resources in the Athens, Georgia area. If you're a musician, that health care will be subsidized. In my own case, I was able to see a counselor for $15 or $20 a session. If you're not a musician, they'll do their best to connect you with low-cost or sliding scale options for mental health care in Athens. Nucci Space provides a lot of resources for musicians in the Athens area. They have low-cost practice spaces. They have a gear sale where they're constantly selling secondhand gear. They've got a low-cost recording studio. They're really just an amazing asset to the Athens, Georgia music scene, but their primary mission is helping people who are depressed or anxious get better. Go to nuci.org, that's nucci.org, or call 706-227-1515. And finally, no matter where you are, if you're struggling with anxiety and depression and you're contemplating self-harm, you can always call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-TALK. It's 24/7. It's free. It's confidential. They have trained volunteers to help get you through your crisis and get you the help that you need. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. So you're in this like sort of workaholic frenzy of trying to sort of make yourself feel worthy of the work itself at Delta State, and then you meet Zach and Dylan Lovett, who are the rest of Young Valley. And what year of college was that when you decided to drop out and play music?
Well, it was my, perceived senior year. I changed majors a couple of times, all based around music. They had a music industry sort of studies there, but I felt like I wasn't applying I figured if I was going to be in college, I wanted to, really learn music and be a music major. Then I felt very burnt out. And, Zach and I were roommates in freshman year. We were roommates. He realized school was not for him after the first year and was done. But we continued to write songs together. He'd come up to the Delta. We played in kind of a folky bluegrass band, like Avett Brothers and Mumford and Sons was a big thing at the time. So we attached to kind of a folk. Zach played a banjo, I played an acoustic guitar. So we wrote songs within an outfit during a college band, and we started Young Valley in the wake of it. And as we were kind of wanting to do that, and Zach's brother came home from TCU, who was a musical theater major, and he had some songs that he had written and gotten good at electric guitar. And we just sort of, it just came together, and we played a couple shows over the summer before my senior year. And by the time I was just so depressed and burnt out on music, it was like that felt like a savior for music for me. It was like, it was fun, it was exciting, and it was. when I finally decided to quit school and treat, and treat that band like my school, we were really kicking ass for a while, and we released a record, and we were, we truly were road dogging. Put a bunch of money put a bunch of cash in a growler and bought a van with that money.
Yeah.
It was like the kind of like young band dreams that people were built on. I mean, it's just I remember all that very fondly.
How many years were you in Young Valley?
6 years, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there
13 to 19, 6 years.
Is there like a Jackson scene for independent music like that?
Man, I think there are some amazing songwriters and musicians. I mean, there's like we don't have a lot of them. It's kind of the like six guys are in six bands.
Right. Right.
We have a lot of that. But the ones that are here are genuine and solid and, I mean, just amazing. And outside of songwriters and bands, we have an incredible hip hop scene. A lot of good rappers in Jackson. And
have you collaborated with any of those groups?
No, I have not. And I consider that a bit of a shame that I didn't really discover a lot of that until I've been gearing up to move away.
Yeah.
But I at least had been around long enough to catch shows and go like, oh wow, this is really fucking good, and I didn't know, and kind of shame on me, I guess.
So what are the venues in Jackson for that kind of thing now, for live music and for hip hop and all that?
It's mostly DIY. I would say, we've had a lot of small venues sort of come and go, that were just for, regional touring bands to come play. Like, Dueling Hall would get your, 80 to 300 app groups.
Yeah. Howlin' Mouse, of course.
Howlin' Mouse, the Red Room and Howlin' Mouse. Martin's expanded. They ate up WC Dons and expanded to a 400 cap room.
I haven't thought about WC Dons in at least 10 years, but we had one of the strangest shows of our entire lives there.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, that's the thing about Jackson that I remember so distinctly, is that, like, there's a lot of weird, really troubled history in Jackson. A lot of the just sort of post-colonial, like, racist bullshit that you get everywhere in the South, but in some ways the Delta kind of concentrates some of it. But at the same time, like, the people who were living lives that challenged a lot of those kind of hierarchies and prejudices really throw down. Like, when you go to a club like Frank Jones Corner, or there were all these after hours places. We would play in Jackson at like Midnight Sun, and then it'd be 3:00 in the morning, and someone would be like, "Well, you guys ready to go to the party?" I'm like, "Man, it's 3:00 in the morning." Like, and we'd end up at some after hours juke joint when there was fried chicken and beer on ice. Nothing was licensed; it was all sort of back channel stuff. But like, Jackson has a certain almost just kamikaze like weekend scene. Yeah,
that's a really great way to put it. And I mean, and I think it is the art that bridges the gap. I mean, it is it's hard to watch in a place like Jackson, where the downtown is practically wilting. Well, people are investing in neighborhoods. I mean, and to be perfectly honest, it's rich white investing in places that are further away from poor black. I mean, and it's sad to see that a lot of people have given up on investing into the downtown area. But it's like going to a place like F. Jones Corner, which, I don't know, it was like, people would be like, it's F. Jones night, and I'm like, I don't know, there's just something like in the air where where it's like the crew is out and you all go. and I just remember last time I was there, and I don't really stay up too late, and so I was like, we pulled up, and granted, the party probably really started after I leave, but we were in there, but it's just, I just love on the wall, it says, no black, no white, just blues.
Yeah.
And I mean, and a mixed group of guys on stage, mixed of age and color, giving everything they got, trading solos, and nobody gives a shit. Everybody's dancing,
Yeah.
I don't consider myself much of one, but hell, I was giving it. And, and I just, that is the beautiful play. That's the beautiful part of Jackson that people don't get to see. And it's moments like that. It's moments like, when in Fondren, the kind of arts neighborhood that I lived in for the past 4 or 5 years, the nights when they did Fondren After 5, I mean, and there would just be thousands of people walking in the street, and there's bands on the back of truck beds and on the front porches of businesses, and I mean, and there's hip hop on one corner, there's a rock band on another corner, there's a pop band around there. It's like, it reminds me a lot of what Athens has to offer too.
Yeah.
And, it's just like, those are the moments that I will miss dearly when I do move away.
Yeah.
And that's the reason it's so great, and that's why Jackson is like my mama. It's like, only I can talk bad about it.
We had a lot of good experiences at Jackson, and because we were in that sort of outlaw after hours community. The only times I ever had bad experiences at Jackson was like wandering into a pawn shop during business hours and, asking where the drums were, and having the guy in the pawn shop say something incredibly racist about drums and not having them out on the floor of the pawn shop and whatever and that kind of thing. And I was just like, man, this town has the most like schizophrenic night and day thing going on with its troubled heritage. But maybe a lot of people don't know about Chokwe Lumumba, the mayor who was elected there, who was a former black separatist who was mayor of Jackson. I think he was elected in 2004. I can't remember exactly when, but now his son is mayor. But he was part of the New Africa Republic, which was this idea that African Americans were going to get reparations from Congress and start a breakaway republic somewhere in the American South, and the Delta was where they were considering it because, the economy of the Delta was built on free labor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think Chokwe Lumumba was poisoned? A lot of people have speculated about that.
I'm not familiar enough with it to know or to speculate.
So he's a black mayor, former black separatist, 66 years old, in reasonably good health. Complains of feeling sick one day. He's dead by sundown, and the county coroner refuses to do an autopsy.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds a lot like it.
Yeah, I mean, part of me, I've wondered if you had an opinion about that, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, from your surface level explanation, that sounds like some dirty work in play,
Right.
Or foul, some foul play.
Yeah, his son is now mayor, so hopefully whatever legacy that he had is carried forward by his son. So I read somewhere that you're currently sort of maintaining your equilibrium as a to try to stay ahead of the anxiety and depression. You write a lot. You do yoga. You meditate. You stay pretty active.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about how you sort of like day-to-day maintenance of kind of staying ahead of your darker feelings.
Man, exercise is important. And I don't know if it's like, you're sure it helps you physically, but I don't think it's talked about enough just how much mental strength you can gain from doing physical exercise. So I tend to wake up pretty early, about 6:30. I sit down with a cup of coffee. I will write a little bit, just kind of the first thing on my brain, or I'll read, and just kind of wake up to the day. Sometimes I run, I'll do some lifting, I got like a little pull-up bar and some free weights, and I'll do yoga. Sometimes it's like a very short combination of the three, or sometimes I just want to do a long yoga practice, and I'll tend to meditate for sometimes 15 to 25 minutes, just breathing practice, and the combination of all of those things has been so helpful for my approach to the day, and patience, not only with myself but with other people. It's been a wonderful way to fight the demons. I will say, I'm sure as many, shout out to my musician friends who have no gig or tour to run to, so they are left with their thoughts and their stagnant feelings. Over the course of March and April, I was not in a good place. And so with a combination of creating these, I've developed habits, but I've really honed them in more because I have, no touring to do. I also used BetterHelp. Shout out BetterHelp.
Wait, what's BetterHelp?
BetterHelp is online therapy. You fill out a questionnaire. They match you with a therapist, and you meet with somebody either online, over the phone, once a week. And it's, a fraction of the cost of going to see a therapist in person. And obviously during the coronavirus, you couldn't do that anyway. So
yeah,
I used part of my stimulus check to see a therapist for, I think, 3 or 4 months. And I would have had to change moving to Georgia anyway, but I also was like, let me just, I feel like I worked myself back to a good place.
Yeah.
And so, with that, I was able to uncover a lot of stuff. It's like, because I had to physically unpack, because I was so used to having everything, my toiletry bag packed and my backpack and all my gear ready to go on the next tour. Because I had to physically unpack, I mentally unpacked, and that was really good for me.
Well, I think that the meditation practice is part of becoming comfortable with stillness, and it's not a thing that I have ever been comfortable with. Like, my sort of way of getting through those first few months of not playing shows, not touring, not being super active, was to go out and work in the garden, which is a pretty consuming activity. But like, I've never been very good at sitting still. And I think that meditation helps you order your thoughts and deal with that by being forced to sit still. But it's a skill I have yet to master.
Yeah. Yeah. Jonathan Faust, who has a podcast, he said, if you want to speed up, slow down. And I keep that with me, because I have found that whenever I'm like, oh, I gotta do this. Oh, I gotta do this. Oh, I gotta send this thing. What's wrong with my car? Oh, these emails, and it just all piles up. And I'm like, okay, if you want to take care of all these things, slow down, organize,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can wake up from your meditation and go, okay, what is the first thing to scratch off the list? And I will just focus on that.
Yeah.
Nobody teaches you to concentrate.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I've had to learn to concentrate just through trying to sort of puzzle my way through complex stuff, but I'm not great at it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the meditation would probably inform that if I could just settle the fuck down and focus.
I'll send you some links.
Oh, do it, man. And I'll put them in the show description. Hangin Tough is dedicated to your grandmother. Tell me about your grandma.
I just get chills thinking about her. She passed away maybe about 4 years ago, and talk about somebody that you could just be around and you would just never be in a bad mood. I mean, it was like she dedicated her life, almost 60 years of marriage, to my grandfather. She was giving, always working with, like Salvation Army of Jackson and Stew Pot she was just such a beacon, just so much light, and was just a deflector of negativity, negative subjects about people, shit talk, I mean, just an absolute deflector of all of those things. Sometimes, maybe swept a couple of things under the rug that should be addressed, but just her positivity was so amazing. And I feel, in a lot of ways we could relate. We had a good understanding of each other. There are certain parts of me that I would not reveal to her, of course.
Sure, it's your grandma.
It's your grandma,
Yeah.
There's some subjects you leave alone with your grandparents,
Well, I'm sure there were certain parts of her life that she didn't reveal to you too.
Yeah. That's true. I always I'd go see them, and I'd always, even during the summer, I'd wear sleeves because, I just didn't want to have a conversation about my tattoos, man.
Yeah.
It's just, it's just better to just leave it out.
Yeah. What was her name, your grandma?
Her name was Elizabeth Dean. We just called her Nana.
Yeah.
And I mean, she just, me and my sister and 4 cousins. So we became close. We did a family trip once a year and got together on Christmas. And it was like, Nana was the organizer of all of that. She made us keep each other in our lives. And
yeah,
she was so special in that way.
Well, I feel like Hangin Tough is a really nice tribute.
Yeah. Even though I'm glad she's not here to hear the F-bomb in the very first song. But
yeah. Well, I usually wind these up with 10 questions that are loosely based on the Inside the Actor Studio questions, which were actually created by a French radio host long before Inside the Actor Studio. But if you're ready for that, we can jump in.
Let's do it.
All right. Question 1. What is the fondest memory you have of a meal that you've had?
I'm just going to go with one that was really recent. When we were on the tour with Justin Peter Kinkelschuster, when we were doing the full band stuff, it was me, G.R. Robinson, who plays with Pete, also played in Water Liars, Kel Kellum, who played guitar on my record, Ethan Frink, who played drums on my record. It was the 5 of us. Pete's fiance's parents have a house in Bloomington, Indiana, and we had a beautiful off day there and the weather was so nice, and we all walked to Kroger and grabbed a bunch of vegetables and chicken and pasta and made a huge pasta sauce and grilled meat and vegetables and like just this big wonderful meal, and then we all sat around and watched a movie, and it was really nice.
And I really love Bloomington.
Yeah.
There's a couple of places, especially about food there. There's a big Middle Eastern market called Sahara Mart that if you ever need like any kind of wild variation of tea, dates, or olives, like they've got 40 varieties of olive and 20 varieties of date and all these mint teas and herbal teas and jasmine tea and black tea and chai, and it's just like the craziest. I love Sahara Mart. Walking in there is absolutely, the smell, the spice smell that hits you when you walk in the door is just absolutely intoxicating. Then of course there's Blooming Foods, which is I think the largest organic co-op in the country, or some crazy, like Bloomington has that great combination of like college town, but also like Midwestern, like sustenance kind of thing. I really dig Bloomington a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Second question. Tell me about a time you were braver than you ever thought you could be. I would honestly say I've had a combination of very brave moments within the past couple of years, and I think that it started with making that record. Yeah.
I had always taken the background, or always was in collaboration with other people, and the fact that I did something musical that was for me with these songs that I wrote while still in collaboration was a brave move for me, and that led to other brave moves.
Yeah.
And so I'm really thankful for that one.
Third question: what is the thing that you've lost that you miss losing the most? What is the thing in your life that you wish you could get back?
Man, we lost a family dog a couple of years ago. Her name was Betty Lou, and she was a rescue, and she was a beautiful combination of dogs. German Shepherd and a face, kind of like, but this beautiful fur, and just like the most amazing dog. We lost her a couple of years ago, and it's like if you could just clone a dog and just have that dog forever. She certainly wouldn't be the same as she was cloned, but damn it, I wish there was a possibility. Amazing dog.
I've had some great dogs. How old was she when she passed?
Oh, she was 16, and we had to put her down because it was just too miserable. She just she was just not getting around the house, and she was not able to live a life that a dog would want to live. But damn fine animal. Yeah. Heart of gold, and faster than a fucking speeding bullet. I mean, amazing.
Next question. Tell me about a time you received an act of kindness from a stranger.
Hmm. First thing that comes to mind is, we touched on my anxiety in college. I had an issue in college where I had, I think, 3 grand mal seizures. My brain just broke down, man. Some mornings I just woke up and I was so jumbled in my own anxious thoughts that my brain would shut down. And one morning that happened. I was supposed to get on a bus for a choir trip, and I went to a gas station to get a big-ass bottle of water because I probably smoked too many cigarettes the night before, and I blacked out because I had a seizure. And there were some old men who sat around that early in the morning. I mean, it was a ridiculous time in the morning, 5:30, 6 in the morning, and they were just sitting around having breakfast. And that man and the man who called for an ambulance for me came and checked on me in the hospital. And sat in, and once I came to, sat and talked with me for a while. I don't remember his name. It's hard to really remember anything at that point in time. But I won't forget his face and looking over me and smiling and, saying, "Man, you had a fall."
Yeah. Do you still have any sort of remnants of a seizure disorder at all, or was that just episodic?
Tell you what, last year, early January, I played a show with, we played a Young Valley show with Future Birds at Proud Larry's in Oxford. January 2019. I was really keyed up from the night. A friend gave me a Benadryl, and I did not know that Benadryl had diphenhydramine, which is a chemical that you do not want in your body if you are prone to seizures. So the next day, I was in between Oxford and Water Valley, and I had another seizure, and I totaled my car. I drove it straight into a culvert. Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Besides some back pain that I deal with from time to time, most of which I've been able to work out through the means of yoga, I was pretty unscathed. So I became lucky, but that was the only time recently that I had to deal with that.
So there was a moment where you came to in your car in a culvert?
No, I mean, no, I have flashes of being helped out of my car and put onto a stretcher. I remember like being helped out and was able to walk to the stretcher. Like I remember that, and then I was out, and then I remember being rolled out into the hospital in Oxford, and then I was out, and then I came to again a little later. Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Next question. What's your favorite place to gig?
Well, I would say Georgia Theater Rooftop is a prime competitor.
It's a good spot, man.
Yeah, it's a damn good spot.
Yeah, I don't, like if you said, there's an outdoor venue in Athens, Georgia that you can play pretty much any time of the year and it's always pretty good, I'd be like, that it's in Georgia, right? And summer happens down there, but something about being up above the street there, it's cooler at night than you expect it to be, and the vibe there, it's bare bones. There's like a vocals only PA or a nominal PA. I think put kick drum on PA. But the crowd there is always receptive, and Man, it's just such a good spot.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's a great one. You know, I want to, like, I wanted to think of something that maybe, I played a really special handful of house shows with Pete when we were on the full band tour, and one of them was the Sunny Hill house shows, live shows. Shout out to Future Birds have played there, Lily Hyatt has played there, John Calvin Abney, who usually plays with John Moreland. Many folks have blessed their living room, and that was a really special night. So, in my recent memory, that is one I really loved.
I dig every one of those artists. It's funny. I'm a big John Moreland fan. So.
Oh, he's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm wearing his shirt right now.
Oh yeah,
one I got. Yeah, when he played at Dueling Hall in Jackson.
Yeah.
I had a friend let me in for free, and so I used that $20 to buy this T-shirt.
See, that's the ethical thing to do when you get into a free show.
Yeah, buy merch. You know.
Yeah. So, visa and income considerations aside, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
Shit. You know, I guess the first thought I had was I've wanted to try out the Southwest at one point in my life, whether it be Joshua Tree or Albuquerque. Yeah, I've always been really fascinated by that area, but the biggest downfall is it's so fucking far from everything else ever. I remember really gravitating towards Flagstaff, Arizona.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful town. You know, when you think of Arizona, you think of a cactus and a tumbleweed. But this is like in the mountains. It's cool. It's you know, I mean, it's got that same smaller town Athens charm, you know, but It's like there's mountains and greenery in the middle of Arizona. It's high altitude and beautiful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Southwest somewhere, but I think Flagstaff would be really cool.
Yeah. Do you have a perfect musical instrument? And if so, do you already own it or not?
No, I don't own it. I think the perfect musical instrument is the piano that you sit down at that has old bones, probably like that one that you had to tear apart. But the one that it just is warm and moves with your fingers and is just out of tune enough to have soul.
Yeah.
That's what I like. I dream about having my own home so I can have one of those.
Yeah.
You know, like a place that I really call home. Yeah. That would be the perfect instrument to me.
Is there an instrument that you've lost either from theft or having to pawn it or sell it that you desperately wish you could have back?
No, not really. I mean, honestly, the stuff I've given away or sold are considerably pieces of shit. So I was I was pretty okay with parting with. I think all the things that are nice I've held on to so far.
Yeah. So if you could be a guest with any artist, like if you could do one song at a show, any artist, living or dead, what song would it be and what artist?
Oh, fuck. would be absolutely terrified. But oh man, I think I'd have to do a song with Bruce Springsteen.
Which one?
Which one? Streets of Fire.
That's a good one, man. I don't know if you know this. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I do interviews for most of these, but every now and then I do a song explication where if I don't have a guest one week or I just feel really on fire about a song, I'll go from end to end in that song and talk about the personnel in the session, where, when it was recorded, what it meant for the artist's career. And I did Born to Run a few months ago. Because I feel like there's so much going on in that song and it's so ubiquitous. Like, it's playing in the elevator. It's playing in department stores. It's a Kroger at 4 a.m. and you kind of hear it and go, "Oh yeah, Born to Run. I like that song." But like, when you really dig down into that song, it's like no other song I've ever heard. And so I did a whole thing about it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm really proud. I'll send you a link to it. So last question. And we've been sort of dancing around this and the other questions, interestingly, but if you can imagine a taxi that can go anywhere in time or space, and you get into this taxi and you say to the driver, "Hey man, take me home." Where is home?
Anywhere in time or space?
Yeah, I mean.
Oh my God.
Yeah. When you think of home and as a place and a time, where is that?
I think of mountains. I don't think of any home that, I never dreamed of extravagance, but a home to me would be, I don't know. I mean, like almost a cabin, but maybe not quite so secluded. I just think of an old house with character that has pieces of wood and rugs and art from my family, and just a place where I can settle in, and that damn piano better be in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Betty Lou the dog better.
Yeah. Betty Lou.
An identical Betty Lou. Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully, and maybe a woman who I have not met yet.
Well, Athens, I mean, Athens it's full of incredibly soulful, highly educated, literate people, and a lot of them are really beautiful. So I think you're coming to the right place for that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
So you're here. You moved here August 5th. Of course, normally this is the part of the interview where I'd say you should go see Spencer's upcoming dates, but ain't nobody I know has any upcoming dates. So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to having you in our town, man. I think you're going to be a huge, a good part of our scene, and I'm stoked that you're moving here.
Oh my God, I really am. Thank you for having me have this conversation. This has been really, really wonderful, and and I've had some good cathartic moments, and I hope that anybody in Athens who would like to take the time to stumble upon this episode and plays music, I hope we can meet.
Man, I feel like a whole lot of people. I'm looking forward to a lot of my friends and peers discovering your work, because I think that it's going to be really good for the town to have you here. So I can't wait. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate it.
All right, episode 60 in the can. Thank you, Spencer Thomas. I thought that was a really fun interview. I really like that guy. I can't wait till he lives here. He's going to blow the doors off this town. You watch. Thank you for listening. I know a lot of folks are having a tough time right now. Don't check out, man. If you can, reach out to me, crashandride@protonmail.com, or avail yourself of any one of the services that we've talked about on this show: Nucci Space, the National Suicide Prevention, Lifeline, Music Cares, whatever it takes to get you through this. Man, hang in there. I love you so much, and I miss you. I want to thank Jake Kreger. He's the sort of de facto producer of the show. He has stayed involved through this whole thing, and we talk at least once a week. He sends me show notes after every show. He helps me keep everything organized. He built the YouTube channel, which if you go to YouTube and search for Crash and Ride Podcast, we've got every single episode we've ever done up there on YouTube, and a couple other fun things too, and there'll be more in the future. Thanks, Jake. You're a fucking hero, man. He was the first guest on the show, and he has stuck with me every step of the way ever since. What a solid guy. Also want to thank Gene Wolfolk and the band The Powder Room. They provide all the music that you hear in the intro and the bumper and the music underneath my voice right now. That's all from The Powder Room's first album, Curtains, which is available on their Bandcamp, thepowderroom.bandcamp.com. Go throw them a couple of bucks. They're a great band. You know, Gene has a new thing called Dream Tent, where he partners with Erica, the singer from Motherfucker. They are doing great work together. It's a big departure from the noise rock of Motherfucker and the Powder Room, but I think it's really brilliant and really beautiful and really apropos of the times. You can go to dreamtent.bandcamp.com and hear their music there, or follow them both on social media or the Dream Tent Instagram account, which has little song snippets up all the time. I'm a big fan. Go check it out, dreamtent.bandcamp.com. As always, you can get Crash and Ride Espresso or Crash and Ride t-shirts on the Crash and Ride website at crashandridepodcast.com. I got a stamps.com account now, so I'm all snazzy, and I don't even have to deal with people to mail you stuff, so I'm not putting myself at risk of the coronavirus to get your stuff in the mail, so feel free to hit me up there if you want a t-shirt or some espresso or whatever. So until we speak again, take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Ask for help if you need it. As soon as we can, let's all go see some bands together. In the meantime, support your favorite band, and remember, loud guitars save lives. Never.